so it's been a while since we learned last, like 2 weeks or more. We're holding in the middle of a sugya, which starts on David Zayin Amud Aleph with the Mishnah. So we'll quickly recap outside for just a few minutes the bottom of David Zayin Amud Aleph, whatever's Negea, to continuing where we're up to, which we're up to on David Zayin Amud Beis, the second line Amud Rav. So what do we learn in the Mishnah? The Mishnah, what's Negea to us, is the first two dinim of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that someone who eats bikurim before, there was a Klein who eats bikurim before there's been kriya, the red psukim, so he gets Makkos. And the second case is kachik kachim chutz Klein. If kachik kachim were eaten outside of the Klein, so there's also Makkos for such a thing. So those are the two cases which are really relevant to our Gemara. It also continues by saying kachim kalim amayis sheni chutz l'choima, which is also somewhat relevant. But let's just focus on the beginning. And really, the most relevant is the beginning. The beginning is the oichel bikurim actually koralem. So the Gemara discusses who is this Tana, because not everybody agrees. Some say that's not true, that there's no malchus for eating bikurim actually koralem. Means there's an issa. There's only malchus for if you eat bikurim, if the kohen eats bikurim before the hanocha, before it's placed by the mizbeach, because the pasuk says twice v'hinichoy v'hinachtoy shana ba akasav la'akei. But so who is this man of our Mishnah which says that there's malchus for oichel bikurim actually koralem? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan says it's Rabbi Kiva, right? And the Gemara says, well, why say it's Rabbi Kiva? It's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon the Feir says in the following brayz. The Gemara says that Rabbi Kiva, the reason why Rabbi Yochanan said it's Rabbi Kiva is just to tell you that Rabbi Kiva holds that Rabbi Shimon. But yeah, you're right. Rabbi Shimon the Feir says this din which we have in the Mishnah. And then we go and say what's Rabbi Shimon, and we have this long brayza from Rabbi Shimon where basically there's a pasuk which says Lo yisuch alecha b'sharecha ma'aseh dagon ch'treish b'sracha b'chayis b'karcha b'tzayncha. And the question is, what is it referring to, right? So the pasuk Lo yisuch alecha b'sharecha sounds like not eating in outside of Yerushalayim. All these things need to be eaten within Yerushalayim. So it's Ma'aseh Sheni, and it's Trumas Yalka refers to Bikurim, right? There's Ma'aseh Sheni, there's Bikurim, there's Toidur Shlamim, which is learned from the pasuk Midvei Secha, and there's Bechoros, which is learned from the pasuk the word HaBechor, and there's Chatas Va'asham, and there's Oila. All these things include Leisuch Alecha B'Shrecha. The pasuk, the way Reb Shimon darshans the pasuk from Sefer L'Reish, he starts with the end, he says Bikurim. Why do you need the pasuk to tell you that you're not allowed to eat Bikurim Ma'aseh Yishlaim? You can only have a Kal V'Chomer from Ma'aseh, and so on and so forth. He goes on by saying that you can learn one thing out of another with a Kal V'Chomer, and therefore he gets to the Maskana, the Be'emes, although the pasuk of passage is talking about not eating outside of Yerushalayim, but since there's no Chiddush in telling me all these different things, all these different dinim, so therefore it's an Eino Inyan, it's no Inyan. We give it, we say it's something else. And the Maskana of this brayso, the end of the brayso, when we finish with the brayso, which is where we're up to, is that you read the pasuk like this: Lo yisuch alecha. If you look at the side, Torah Shalom Aleph from the design Amud Aleph, the pasuk goes like this: Lo yisuch alecha b'sharecha. Ma'aser, the gon chetireish koyitzrach is going to Ma'aser outside Yerushalayim. Bechor is referring to the Bechor. But what about the Bechor? So it can't be telling me that to eat outside of the Chayim because that's Kal V'Chomer Ma'aser. And if he's coming to tell you not allowed it, the Kohen's not allowed it before Zrika, it's Kal V'Chomer from Toidur Shlam, which is later on in the pasuk. So what's the pasuk telling me? The Bechor is after Zrika. The Zar, in other words, the Zar who eats the Bechor after Zrika, so is like that's what Bechor is. Bekarcha v'tzoyin refers to Chatas and Asham. Karka was saying first Chatas v'Asham, and here too we learn a Kal V'Chomer. It's not talking about Chutz L'Chomer, and it's not talking about Ifnei Zrika, and it's not talking about La'akas Zrika. So rather, it's coming to tell you that a kohen who eats Chatas v'Asham outside of the Kloim, outside of the curtain, right? Which Kashim have to be eaten mamish Teicha Klein. And the Darecha refers to Oila, and here too, Oila is not needed. What's referring to? If it's all the different dinim can be learned from Kal V'Chomer outside of Yerushalayim, Ifnei Zrika for the kohen, La'akas Zrika for Azar, can all be learned from Kal V'Chomer. Chutz L'Klein can be learned from Kal V'Chomer, Chatas v'Asham. So L'maisi says that L'isuch alecha b'shrach with regards to the Kol Nedarecha, which is Oila, means to say that it's a malchus, it's a lav in the Torah that you're not allowed to eat an Oila b'chlal, even Ifnim, because oil has to be totally burnt, and if it's not this pasuk, we just know there's an assay kolul tiyah. But from here we have a lab. So finally, the end of the pasuk Trumas Yalka is referring to is referring to well, midveisacha is referring to something else. 1 second. The Taidah Shlamim, exactly. Taidah Shlamim, the Yisroel is referring to Taidah Shlamim, and to tell you that the Taidah Shlamim, if Zrika, even someone's allowed to eat the Taidah Shlamim, if it's before Zrika that he gets Malkus. Okay, so that's ultimately how he learns the pasuk. And there's Malkus for all of them. Gemara is later going to ask some strong questions on this brisa. So any questions that you have, just leave for the moment for the side. But at the moment, this brisa teaches me a whole host of dinim with regards to all sorts of different things: Truma, Bikurim, Bechayret, Toida, Chatas and Asham, Toida Shlam, Chatas and Asham, and Oil. Okay, so Amar Rava says like this. So Rava is just making a comment about this brisa, that it's a wonderful brisa, which Reb Shimon says, and the way he expressed his praise for this brisa, Reb Shimon, he says, the lido imek Reb Shimon Taylor, v'loy loy seile, that somebody who's davening that his mother should have a baby, he should make the tefillah that the baby should be like Reb Shimon. The way Rashi learns it slightly differently. The Yalda imek Reb Shimon Taylor, kol she'imo yiledes tavakesh rak miras sheik Reb Shimon. I think same thing. Yeah, kol she'imo yiledes tavakesh rak miras sheik Reb Shimon. I think there's a shaila where they're talking about the mother herself making this yihiratzen, or son making it about his mother. The Lashon the Yalda imek Reb Shimon Taylor sounds like it's someone talking about his mother. But upon him, this thing that if someone wants to have a child, he should say Yihiratzen should be like Reb Shimon. Be loy Taylor. If it's not going to be like Reb Shimon, then better than not to have the child. It's a way of expressing how great Reb Shimon was. That every mother should pray, should daven for a child like Reb Shimon. And then Rabbi continues. Even though, on the one hand, I'm praising Reb Shimon, but I'm also saying that even though the different kavachoymes that Reb Shimon had, which established the different dinim that he learned out of the pasuk, right? That because the pasuk is not needed for itself, because it could be learned out of a kal v'chomer, because it can't be referring to another thing, because it can be learned out of a kal v'chomer. Therefore, it's telling me a much bigger chiddush, even though those kal v'chomers have a pirka. Still, the Yalda imik Reb Shimon Taylor. That's the Rashi. Avagav the ispa pirka the milsik the mashka pirka b'kulav az, like we find pirkas in all the kal v'chomers. Okay. So now the Gemara is going to ask, what are the pirkas? The Gemara is going to discuss the pirkas. So in the previous bride, we said we started off like this. At the end of the passage says, "Trumas yad ka'idu bikurim." Can't be telling me not to eat bikurim outside of Yerushalayim, and you get Malkus, because that can be learned out of a kal v'chomer from Ma'aseh Sheni, which is at the beginning of the passage. If Ma'aseh Sheni hakal, this is the point. Kal v'chomer. If Ma'aseh Sheni hakal cannot be eaten in Yerushalayim, you get Malkus. Kal v'chomer that you're not allowed to when you get Malkus for eating bikurim. So the question is, what's the kal v'chomer? My chumra to bikurim. You have to tell me. So my chumra to bikurim in Ma'aseh Shekein asurim lazar. Shat is the chumra bikurim over Ma'aseh Sheni is that bikurim is aser for a zar. Ma'aseh Sheni, although it has limitations where it can be eaten, it has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. Anyone can eat it, so therefore it comes out that bikurim is more chama, and that's the kal v'chomer. If already Ma'aseh Sheni is not allowed to be eaten in Yerushalayim, and you get Makkos kal v'chomer before bikurim. That's the kal v'chomer Reb Shimon, which he doesn't attach ois, but that's chat. So the Gemara says Adarabba Ma'aseh chomer shekein aser la'oinen. It's not true. In certain ways, bikurim is more common than Ma'aseh Sheni. True that bikurim is aser lazar. In another way, Ma'aseh Sheni is more common than bikurim because Ma'aseh Sheni is aser la'oinen. And oinen like halti ba'oinen. You're not allowed to eat a Ma'aseh Sheni and oinen. Someone who's between the misa and the kvura. At least when Rashi says yoim misas meisa, the day of the misa, maybe. Different shot exactly what Aninos is, but Aninos is the early stages of Avelos, before the Kvura or the first day of the Misa. So Ma'aseh Sheni is also la'oining. And Ma'aseh Bikurim, there's no such restriction. Okay, so that's the pirka which we have on the kal v'chomer from Ma'aseh Sheni to Bikurim. The Brahmas Bikurim is more chomer. Ma'aseh Sheni is more chomer in a certain way. So what are you saying? Kal v'chomer to Bikurim, right? Next, and then we go on to the next thing that Reb Shimon says. Reb Shimon says, or my comment, Reb Shimon learns a kal v'chomer that Toido Shlamim can also be learned of a kal v'chomer from Ma'aseh Sheni. You don't need a pasuk to tell me that there's Malkus and there's a lab for Toido Shlamim not being eaten chutz l'chaim out of the walls of Yerushalayim because kal v'chomer from Ma'aseh. So what's a kal v'chomer? You have to tell me there's a chumra, a stringency in Toido Shlamim over Ma'aseh. So what is that? Shekein tunim matan domim v'imur l'gam izbeach. The chumra of Toido Shlamim over Ma'aseh is that Toido Shlamim is a carbon. It needs mat and dami. You need to put domim on the mizbeach, and you need to offer up certain parts of it on the mizbeach. Ma'aseh Sheni doesn't have this. The Rita points out that it's a little bit schwer to say this because Ma'aseh Sheni is not a carbon because not shy by the whole musuk. Nevertheless, the Rita says that Kain derech of the Shas, the Gemara does this. It's considered a chumrah, even if something's not shayach, but the ma'isa that doesn't exist by ma'isa sheni, the matan dam and neimurin, so therefore it's considered a chumrah of toida over ma'isa. So the Gemara said, and that's the kal v'chomer Reb Shimon is saying that already ma'isa sheni, which doesn't need matan dam and neimurin, not allowed to eat outside Yisrael kal v'chomer toida. So the Gemara challenges this with a pircha adrabah. Shimon's kal v'chomer is not a strong kal v'chomer. Adrabah ma'isa chomer she'tein ton kesef tzura. Ma'isa chomer she'tein ton kesef tzura means when you want to redeem ma'isa sheni, to be able to eat outside of Yerushalayim, yeah, when Osato Makkos, that's the pasuk says, you can be paid to the Ma'aser Sheni. So Ton Kasef Tzura needs a certain type of money. It needs a money which has a tzura, which has a form on it, a certain type of coin which has a picture, some sort of tzura on it. Masha Enkein, what's the shot? Masha Enkein, Taido Shlamim. Pashte Shlamim is no musik of pidyon. So the Mefarshim Rishonim explain that even Taido Shlamim, even when there is a pidyon, it can be done with any type of money, right? Even when it's it becomes nifsal or whatever, it needs to be paid. It doesn't need that to be kasset. So it can be done on anything. Gemara continues. So my comment the b'chari b'taydu Yerushalayim. Gemara says that when the pastor says you're not allowed to eat the b'chari, it can't be talking about not eating it outside of Yerushalayim because kavapayim ma'aser sheni, right? But it also says that you can't learn. It's talking about. You can't say it's talking about lifnei zrika. Yeah, you can't tell me that it's just talking about you're not allowed to eating it lifnei zrika because that could be learned from a kal v'chomer from Toida Shlamim. The question is, what's the kal v'chomer from Toida Shlamim? So right, why is b'chayr more chamer that if already Toida Shlamim can't be eaten lifnei zrika b'chayr also can't? The Gemara says shekain kedushasei mirecha. The chumer of b'chayr over Toida Shlamim is shekain. Huh? Always luck. Always luck. My chumer the b'chayr b'toyde shlam shegidash merachim the chumer b'chayr over toyde shlam that we say kal v'chayr if already toyde shlam is us lifnei zrika for sure b'chayr can't be eaten lifnei zrika and therefore that's not packing up shabarad. It's coming to tell me that achas zrika that a zar can't eat the b'chayr. Adrabah l'chor there's a chumer the other way around. There's a chumer of toyde shlam over b'chayr. What's the chumer? Toyde shlam chamur shekei ton smicha on the sachim not because of a shay. Toyde shlamim are real kabbanas in the sense that they need to you do smich on it, and the sachim you bring wine offering with it, and you need to the kohen waves the chazan and the shaykh, which are things which are not needed by b'chayr, and therefore that shows me that Toida Shlam is more common. So how can you learn one out of the other? How can you say that if already Toida Shlamim can't be eaten if needs, for sure b'chayr shouldn't be? What do you mean? B'chayr is more kal in a certain way. But maybe it doesn't apply at all because Toida Shlamim is tonim smicha to the sachim tovas chaz v'shaykh and b'chayr isn't. Okay. What's the chumr of chatas v'asham? Meaning at the next stage of the brayso, what the Shimon is dirish is that certain words in the pasuk refer to chatas and asham. The karcha v'tzayncha refers to chatas and asham, and he goes to the same sort of thing. And he says ultimately that maybe he's talking about achas rika, not to eat the chatas and asham after zrika. So he says no. Kal v'chomer from b'chayr. B'chayr is also achas rika for a zar to eat the b'chayr. So for sure he's not allowed to eat the chatas v'asham, and therefore the pasuk must be telling me something else, which is Klein. Right? For the Gemara, what's taka the form of chatas v'asham over b'chayr? So shkein kachik kodshim. The chatas v'asham have the status, the category of chatas kachik kodshim. Kachik kodshim, the more holy. Adrab b'chayr chamish shkein k'shas meracham. Adrab b'chayr is a certain form. Because Kedusha Meracham, it's Kaddish from day one, from when it's born. It's not something which you became Kaddish later through someone being Makdish. Therefore, the Kal v'chomer is not a good Kal v'chomer, right? So these are all pirkas on Reb Shimon's reasoning and Reb Shimon's dinim, which he learns all from the fact that we can't, the whole bunch of dinim already learned from a Kal v'chomer. The Kal v'chomer doesn't make it. And finally, finally, the Gemara says, Reb Shimon in his Brayso says that the words in the Dorech refers to Oila, and says that you can't be talking about not eating an oila chutz l'klaim and learning that of the kal v'chomer from katas v'asham, because if already katas v'asham is the oila is talking about chutz l'klaim, because you can learn that from katas v'asham, you don't need a special passage to tell me. So what's tackle? My chomer the oila from katas v'asham. What's taka the chumrah of oila over chatas v'asham that we say a kavachayim? If already chatas v'asham, you're not allowed to eat chutz l'klayim for sure oila, no? And therefore the pasuk of oila must be talking about something else, which means that you're not allowed to eat it even in lifnimik minaklayim because it's an oila. So he says shekain kalo because the din by oila is totally burnt. Says taka, that's that nice chumrah that you found. That adra, but chatas v'asham chamisha came a chapi. Chatas v'asham are more common in a certain way because chatas v'asham are mechaper. Now I just want to pause for a second. Oil is also mechaper. We know the oil and mechaper and mitzvahs assay. So shat is you have to just tight choice. A chatas and ashram are mechaper, meaning the mechaper for specific averas. Specific avera that was mechayiv you to bring the chatas and ashram. And oil is not something. There's no chi of oil to bring an oil. It's just that if you bring an oil, it has this value that is mechaper on the assay. But chatas and ashram is directly mechaper. It's directly brought. The whole Indian is to be mechaper on a specific avera. You did a specific avera b'shaygi chayv chatas. This ashram can be either because of ashram where you're not sure if you did an Aveira, or there's certain Aveiras which are specifically on Chayiv and Asham. But it's Machapa. And fine, you said all the different things mentioned in the Braisa are all more common from oil in a certain way because this Bushtei Achilas, they have two Achilas, meaning that part of it is consumed by the Mizbech and part of it is consumed by the Bailam or by the Kohanim. Period. So that is like page number 1 of the Gemara, where the Gemara basically says that when Rava said that I'll tell you what the pirchas are. In order to tell you what the pirchas are, first I have to tell you what Rav Shimon meant. What was Rav Shimon's cheshbon in the Kal V'Chomer? So we went through the chumras of each thing that Rav Shimon took for granted that there was a chomer, and he made his Kal V'Chomer. And therefore he said the psukim must be talking about something else. And we said that it's not a Kal V'Chomer because in each case the other thing also has a chumra. It doesn't work in one direction the way Rav Shimon thought. So let's pause over. Let's do Rashi. The Avodah this Bupircha we saw. The most of the Mashpir B'Chol Bikurim Mutarim LaOyin and L'Rib Shimon B'Bamas Pekara. Rashi points out that the MS of the Gemara, just we read it quickly, yeah. And we said, "My Chomer the Bikurim Ma'is Shkein Asurim Lazarim Adrab Ma'is Chomer Shkein Asal LaOyin." Ma'is is Asal LaOyin, and Bikurim isn't Asal LaOyin. Bikurim is also Asal LaOyin. So Rashi has to explain that no, it's Makkos to know whether it's Asal LaOyin. And the same Reb Shimon, the problem is that the same Reb Shimon who said this Braisa, he take a hold that Bikurim is Mutal LaOyin, and therefore you have a chumrah in Maisa over Bikurim. So Kavachayim doesn't know Bikurim. Time later, Reb Shimon Bivamas Pekar that I give on the days. Oinen Yoy Misas Meisa. Rashi says the definition of Oinen is Yoy Misas Meisa. I didn't look into this, but I think that others say, at least today we understand that Aninos isn't the day of the Misa necessarily, but Oinen is between the Misa and the Kavura. Akabanim Rashi says over there, at least we get to Yoy Misas Meisa. Tom Kasef Tzura. What's Tom Kasef Tzura? Maisa Sheni. If you need to be paid it, you need a Kasef Tzura. The Pidyoinin to redeem Maisa Sheni, to make Maisa Sheni Chulin. You transfer the Kedusha from the Maisa Sheni onto money, but not any money. It has to be Kasef Tzura. The Ksiv Tzarta Kasef B'Yadkar uses an interesting lashon, the Tzarta Kasef B'Yadkar, which we learn from that. The Dovid Sheyeshel of Tzura has to be money which has in it a Tzura and in a form, a picture, some sort of a Tzura on the coin. Fine. So now back in the Gemara. Elamai. So now the Gemara is even more confused, so to speak. Why did Rabbi say the Yalda Imikim Shimon tell you say about Avagam this Perka? You just told me how Shimon's whole Kavachaymas don't work, and you're saying still the Yalda Imikim Shimon tell you mishabeach the Mailus of Shimon. What's going on? So that's what the Gemara asks. Elamai the leader Imikim Shimon. What's Takab Shat? You need the Imikim Shimon if all these Kavachaymas have Perkas. So the Gemara answers the Lemai Dispir Leila Didei. Shat is that he was smart. In other words, we're praising of Shimon because based on what he thought, that the Taka, all these things, the Kavachaymas did work, Misaris Leili Krava Darish. He turns around the pasuk and he's Darish. What does this mean? He turns around the pasuk and he's Darish. What it means is that he starts off, he doesn't go in order. He starts off with Trumas Yad Ka'elu Bikurim. In order that he can get a din out, right? In order that he can get as many dinim as possible out of this pasuk, so to speak, he learns it in such a way where he starts off with the thing which only has one thing we can apply to it, and then he goes on to the next thing which you can apply to, and he learns the previous one, the newest thing from the previous one with a Kavachayim. If he would have said in a different order, it wouldn't have worked. We'll see in Rashi exactly pshat. Let's see Rashi now. It's a nice long Rashi. Dumai the sphere Messiah Elamai he the oil base but Pirkei Lemilsa Mao Shvacha. If since it's a pirkei to all this Kavachayim is what's taka the praise, why are we praising it? So the Gemara answers, Rashi explains, the Lamai the sphere le Messiah is the Kavidarsh. The fee died. This means is that this. My the sphere means the fee died according to what he thought. Shachum shu moitze ba'oisai shu moitze chamurim. Nirin lechayim that those chumras that he found that he finds to be Chamor. Nirin like Chaim Ataka appeared to him as a Chaim. Sora says Amikra Doshi turns around the pasuk, meaning he Hafak Limtza Yitzur Shamatz. He's not Dorish in order. He doesn't go through the pasuk in order. Because if he would be Dorish in order, he wouldn't have been able to learn out all these Yisurim. How so? Shem Dorish consider If he learned it out in order, he wouldn't be able to learn out all these Yisurim. Why? Shem Dorish if he went in order, the first thing which comes in the pasuk, you start with Bechayr. Right? You start with Bechayr. Shem Dorish Bechayr is a Bechayr, but Hima Bala Beinu. You could say, yeah. What's it coming to teach me? If he wouldn't be able to say the next thing of we never learned the din of Lifnei Zrika by Taid Shlamim yet. I don't know that Taid Shlamim exists in the pasuk, and even if it does exist in the pasuk, I only know that Taid Shlamim is also to eat outside of the wall. I haven't yet been doirish anything about Taid Shlamim to tell me that Taid Shlamim in the pasuk is telling me not allowed to eat a Lifnei Zrika to learn a Kavachayim to Bechar. So you wouldn't be able to do that. You would only be able to tell me that the pasuk's telling me that you wouldn't have the biggest kiddush, which is you're not allowed to eat after Zrika pieces are. So that is the shat in Rabbis. So for what we've seen is like this, that Shimon gives his Josh on Amad Aleph, his Brisa, where he learns a whole multiple dinim out of the fact that there's multiple Kavachaimas. And the Gemara B'Emes slugged up his at least asked kashas on all his Kavachaimas, in which case we really left with nothing. Really left with just the din of Aloy Suchalech or Bishraki, not allowed to eat it. What's the Chaimah? That's it. You need the pasuk by all of them because there's no Kavachaimah. You need the pasuk by all of them just to tell you not allowed to eat it. What's the Chaimah? There's no Kavachaimah. But let's put that question on the side for a moment. But if Shimon himself had the word Kavachaimas, and Rabbi is praising him because he was doirish in such an order that he could get. Now the Gemara is going to ask a kasha on Reb Shimon on his own terms, that even if it's taka good kavachaymer, putting aside the shilas that we have till now, that even his kavachaymers don't work, but even if they were kavachaymers, so what? We know there's a klal, ein oin shemin adin, ein masir min adin. You don't learn out oin shemin adin, and you definitely don't learn, as we'll soon see, as haris min adin. The pasuk can't tell you don't do something, and if you do something, you're going to get malchus from a kavachaymer. So therefore, straight away. You want to tell me that the pasuk, for example, let's take Bikurim, for example, yeah? You want to tell me that the pasuk which says Bikurim can't be coming to tell you you're not allowed to eat Bikurim chutz l'chayma. Why not? Because of Kabbalah, I would know from Kabbalah from I. So therefore, the pasuk is telling me you're not allowed to eat Bikurim actually like maybe the pasuk is coming to tell me that you're not allowed to eat Bikurim chutz l'chayma. I can learn from a Kabbalah, but that wouldn't be able to tell me a lav for which you get malchus. So that's the Gemara's kasha. 6 lines from the bottom of the page. Can the Torah tell you don't do something, and if you do, you're going to get malchus? Yeah, that type of loisasa. Don't do something, but not only don't do something, I'm warning you that if you do it, you're going to get malchus. Can you really do that from a kavachayim? Can we learn out that the issa bikurim chutz l'chayim from a kavachayim from Isashani, and therefore the pasuk is spare for something else? And same thing with all the other things. You learn one from the other with the kavachayim. Even according to the mandama, which means we know there's a kal ein oin shemin adin, but there is a mandama. Rashi will soon say who it is. In fact, the Shayim argue who it is. But even if there is a mandama, not even if there is, even according to that mandama, Taka says oin shemin adin, that you can punish somebody from a kavachayim. That's only the oinish itself. It says malchus somewhere. You can apply it to somewhere else with a kavachayim. But the Torah still needs to tell me by both of them, don't do it. And only then you can get malchus, right? There needs to be a warning of don't do it, not beferish, not because of kavachayim. And here you don't have that. That's the Gemara's kasha. And the Gemara is surah ba'al, a very doichidik answer in the pashtos. This is what the Gemara says, yeah. Why is it doichidik answer? I mean, it's forced, yeah, because that's not the lashon of the brayse. The lashon of the brayse is loika, right? Right? He's coming to tell me all these different dinim, and he's saying that you can be loika because the earlier dinim can be learned out of a kavachayim that you get malchus. So elamai, it's lav dafka. The loika is lav dafka. Surah ba'alma is coming to tell me stam that there's a is. Let's pause for Rashi. Pause for a moment for Rashi. V'chimazir min adin. See Rashi. V'chimazir min adin. The ka'ama. Like we said, all these different things which we said. If the Torah is coming to tell me not allowed to be Bikurim chutz l'chayim, can be learned kavachayim ma'aser. The su'im if they zika kavachayim toida. And furthermore, we say later with regards to Katas va'asham, I believe, or Bechoyer, sorry. That if it's coming to tell me if Nezrika, Kavachayim, maybe all of them is Chutz L'chayim. The Kam is Kavachayim. How are you going to tell me that you can learn it from a Kavachayim, from one, from the other, from Bikurim? Ein Masirim in Adin, Ein Kanemeini. So you can't have a Kavachayim. In order to get Makkos, there's a shit of Rabbi Yitzchak. You do get Ein Shminadim. Nevertheless, by the Azhara, there is another passage which teaches me that Ein Matzir Minadim. The Gemara answers Yisroel ba'alma. How do you come with pull Azhara b'kavachayim and Yisroel ba'alma come with mal? Tosfos deals with the question, and he goes to a massive Tosfos. So it starts the middle of Yud on the base and finishes almost at the bottom of Yud Madal. But one of the questions that he asks is the L'chura Hagufa. Why are you telling me? In other words, in order to get to the Issa, he still has to tell me. In other words, in order to get to the extra din, either you get Makkos or there's the Issa for this extra din, he has to say that the first Issa is learned from a Kavachayim. And that's only the Issa. Maybe Taka the Pasuk is coming to tell you Makkos. So Tosfos basically explains that according to Rashi, but the Torah is telling me two things. The Torah is Taka telling me that you get Makkos by all of it. And because of Ein Masirim in Adin. But besides that, it's also coming to tell you from the Kavachoimas, you also learn Yisurim. So now the Gemara challenges this Pshat in Reb Shimon in the Bryce. We learn the Pshat in Reb Shimon is that even though he says Loika, but there's no Loika, there's no Makkos by all these different things which we learn out of a Kavachoim. It's just an Issa, right? In other words, that a Zar who eats Oila, who eats from the Oila, doesn't get Makkos, right? So Rava said it then, according to Reb Shimon, a Zar who eats from the Oila before Zrika, Chutz L'chayma, according to Reb Shimon, is like a Chamish. Now, the Pashtos, before we learned the previous Gemara which slugged up the Kavachaymas, and before we learned this Gemara over here which asks that Ein Masirim in Adin, and we said that Reb Shimon is to make Surah Ba'alma, Rava is very understanding. Why? But that's just a Taitcha. Is a Zar Sha'acham in Oila Fnei Zrika like a Chamish. Why? Like this. Chutz L'chayma, there's a Makkos, Kavachayim from Bikurim, right? Chutz L'chayma, there's a Makkos, Kavachayim from Bikurim. Now, besides when you eat Chutz L'chayma, you're also eating it Chutz Klein. And Chutz Klein is a Kavachayim, I believe, from Katas va'asham, but you're not allowed to eat it Chutz Klein. That's number two. Now, there's another din is that he's a Zar who's and another din is that he's eating it. I'm not sure we're going right in order now. He's eating it Ifnei Zrika. Right, it's Chutz L'Klein, but besides that, it's Ifnei Zrika, meaning even by another carbon, right, which is learned out of a Kavachayim from Taida v'Asham, which the pasuk says that Ifnei Zrika he's like. Number four, he's a Zar who's eating it, which means even if it would be La'achaz Zrika, it would be a problem mitzad a Zar. And number five, even a Kohen's not allowed to eat the Oila ki huzeh because it's supposed to be burnt, right? And that's what the pasuk is referring to. So that's why he's like a Chamish, very verstanden. But now that you told me that you can't learn out Yisura, you can't learn out Makkos from Kavachayim. So the Chura, you have one. Yeah, all you have is that you're not allowed to eat an oil Chutz L'chayim. That's the only Makkos you can get. All the others you're not going to get. So how can Rava say that you get Loika? Now the truth is, Reb Shimon also said the Lashon Loika. But the point is, the way the Ritva explains, and it's verstandig, that Amoira, when he says something, he really means it. It's not a lav dafka Lashon. Amoira, if he's going to, so why does he say Loika? When he says Loika, Taka means Makkos. That's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara Taka answers no. Chamisha Yisurin have it. Taki didn't mean it. It's a little bit of a doicha because like Moira has to explain himself. But Lemais, that's the Gemara's Chamisha Yisurin have. Says Rashi. Let's pause for Rashi. Zar sha'acham min ha'oila. Yisur ba'alma we read. Haydi kamais b'kol azar b'kavakam Yisur ba'alma kamen in Makkos. Zar sha'acham min ha'oila. Dafka zar ka'am. Dafka zar. Dafka the kohen rabbi oila zar. Haka zar dafka ka'amar. Why? Why dafka the kohen bas lechad lam? If it was Klein, you would be missing one. You'd only get 4 Makkos. Why? How do you get to the 5? So he explains. In other words, that even a Klein who would eat something which he's allowed to eat, if it's Ifnei Zrika, he's not allowed to. That's how you get Tifan. That could be a Zar. It was a kind who done before. Now the kasha obviously is that based on what we said before, that Ein Masirim and Adin, even if Shimon didn't mean you get Makkos for all these things, it can only be 1 Makkos. Why 5 Makkos? 4 Makkos. It should be 1 Makkos, not 5. So my answers that Kamishi Surinam. The Rashi says, Mishum Kamishi Surim Ka'ama Veloy Lukas Ale. Now the Gemara straight away asks for non-Tnan Elein Aloikin. You have to explain this kasha clear. So the Mishnah says Elein Aloikin for sure talking about Malkus Kipshotai. Now it doesn't say all the different things, but it does say some of them. It says Bikurim Achaloi Kara Aleim, right? Now that Mishnah, which says Oicha Bikurim is a Hamshach to Elein Aloikin, right? We're talking about different things, what? Yeah, Harry's Aloik Arbaim, and the two of the things which I mentioned is Oicha Bikurim Achaloi Kara Aleim, which is learned out from this pasuk of Lo Sucha Lecha, and from the fact that the etzem din of bikurim chutz l'choyim can be learned out from a kavachayim from Maisa. So you're assuming that there's a kavachayim, the yamas here in adin, and kachim chutz l'choyim is also only malchus once you've established that all sorts of other things are already learned out of a kavachayim, because otherwise you learn it kipshuta. The kachim is talking about chutz l'choyim, and not chutz l'choyim. Like the pasuk is mashma. It's only because you have a kavachayim from bikurim and from other places that you say that the din of kachim that the pasuk is talking about kachim chutz l'choyim. So v'anon tzanei na loikin. Says Rashi, it says these two things. Elo kra yiseiru. Elomai, we have to say the kra yiseiru. What's that kra yiseiru? It's going to explain. Mechdi ksiv. It says in the passage like
why
this.
does the Mishnah have to be loikin?
That's the. They ain't a loikin. Man was talking about Malchus. Harry's a loika, as opposed to lava nitilase, which doesn't get Malchus. Yeah, Shoiva says in the Pesach. Yeah, lava nitilase is not kumei surim over. It's talking about Malchus. So kra elo kra yiseiru. What he's coming to tell you is about and the way Rashi learns. I may explain this whole Gemara like Rashi. It's Tosfos and Ramban it for learning the Gemara differently, but learning like Rashi. Now, elo kra yiseiru means like this. Ba'atzam. We're doing two things at the same time. The MS, the Brisa remains. This Brisa that Yizayin Amad Aleph remains to tell me Yisurim. The Taka, that from Kavachoimas we learn different Yisurim. The pasuk itself really is only telling me Malkus Chutz L'Choim. At least that's what we think till now. And all the other dinim are learned out just Yisurim, not Malkus. If so, why are you getting Malkus? Bikurim actually Karlem and Kachim Chutz L'Choim. All the only Malkus you can learn now is the one which it says Befeirush, which is Lo Yisuch Alech B'Shirach, which means not to eat Chutz L'Choim, all these different things. So he says Elo Kra Yiseiru. But MS, there's another pasuk, which means to say that the pasuk Lo Yisuch Alech isn't the first time that you're being told that you're not allowed to eat all these things Chutz L'Choim. What's pshat? Mechtik said it says in the pasuk. The pasuk which says they veis shamay they say comes it's a whole pasuk that you have to bring to the Beis Hamikdash all these different things, and it includes bikurim, which is trumas yadchem, and it includes kache, right? It includes all the different things. So the vart is like, but it's a mitzvah say, yeah. It's a mitzvah say. It doesn't say you're not allowed to eat outside. They veis shamay, but the problem is like this: that if the pasuk just wants to say the alam, you don't need to tell me again. Lo yisuch alach or ma'aser b'gan chatirosh chadisag. Could have just said lo yisuch alachlam. You're not allowed to eat those things mentioned in the previous pasuk, in the earlier pasuk, where it says you need to bring up to the Beis Hamikdash, right? So let's read again. First line, Mechdik say, let's see, it says in the pasuk, and it says a whole long list of all these different things. Chatas, Asham, Taida, Shlamim, the Chor, Bikurim is included, right? Lichtev Rachmanet, the pasuk wanted to tell me it could have just said Lo Yisuchel Lo Oichlam. You're not allowed to eat them, but it doesn't say you don't eat them, which would include all the above. Rather, it says Lo Yisuch Alach B'Shirach and repeats. Right? So that's the Gemara. So what's that? Why does the pasuk tell me again? Rather, the pasuk is coming to tell me that each one is its own thing. Now, the way Rashi explains, we'll see it inside. There's no lav for each one because, as we said, there's still. The point is, there's still things which are learned out of the Kavachoyma. The point is that the lav of eating chutz l'choyma would be the lav from chutz l'choyma is already from lo yisuch alechol, so to speak. Since it could have said lo yisuch alechol, that's already the fact that it says all these different things comes to tell me there is one imeinu inyan. In other words, so it can teach me that bikurim actually kara aleim for bikurim, and it can also teach me for it can also teach me one other thing. Which is that it can also teach me, since chutz l'choyim is already is taken care of from the lo yisuch l'oichel, so bikurim can be ad shalei kara aleim, and other things where there's no kriyas bikurim shaykh. But for example, taido shlamim, they can tell me, right? When the pasuk says in idvei sakos taido shlamim, all the other things, it can tell me lifnei zrika. That much we can also get lifnei zrika. After that, there's no more psukkah. There's no more, right? Because you can't learn that from a kaval time. So let's see Rashi inside. We'll stop over and let's do Rashi. This passage of Shim was direct, right? It says and then with the kamani l'kula b'gavei enumerates all these different types of carbonas and things. The mechtik siv le'amani v'aveisim sham. It says earlier v'aveisim sham you have to bring the chulu b'hai kroksiv, and it says that the whole list. You just want to tell me you're not allowed to eat it outside the chayma. It should have just said lo yisochalach l'mishrecha. Imal puts the chayma b'alav. Yeah, so that's the taina. So when it says lo yisochalach again, and it says every detail must be adding something. Now Rashi just points out that why is that not called the lav shebechlolos? Right? We know that the lav just includes a whole bunch of things. There's no Makkos. The lav shebechlolos loy have. Says Rashi, it's not a lav shebechlolos. Why? Given that kula koi have lav. The lav's bam is going on all of them. And we've already been mefared each and every one of them. Saying don't eat them. That's not considered lav shebechlolos. That kula koi have a lav kol chad chad. Hey, kedam lav shebechlolos can loy sechel ki im steish. Lav shebechlolos is where you don't enumerate b'chlal. You say you're not allowed to anything besides the age, and you say so. Therefore, you understand from the kiyim to the age that loy cycle is going on anything else. That's called the lav shebechol. But over here, where you've already been mefared, and it could have just said loy cycle ochlam. That's not called the lav shebechol. So going to be kol hashiyasmi gafnayayin. It's another. And nozim kol hashiyasmi. That's the lav shebechol. The goyma. Goes to back aleph. Let's just read the way he does it. Masham nimcha. Okay. So it's not. Why do you need to tell me again all the different things? As if it says again the lav of in one more time. Since it's not necessary for the lav of because that's already learned from the fact they could have just said loy soichlam and be quiet. So to know any ledova you can give it, and then you can say it's talking about one other thing. The mahava lav, reading that goes to back base. The mahava lav ba'amti nafshe. Each one, all of the others goes lemil say osa. Now, what does that mean? It's a place that Rashi straight away jumps in. By all of them, you only have one thing, which is la'oichel lifnei zrika, because you can't learn one from the other. You can't say lifnei zrika is talking about Taida Ba'ashna and learn the others lifnei zrika with the Kavachayim because Amos Yim Adin. Enochanami. So it says Rashi, you're right. The Masnis Liktani Loikim Ba'oichel Kachim Kachim Chutz L'Klam. The Masnis, the Mishnah which says Loikim Ba'oichel Kachim Kachim Chutz L'Klam, which the Chorah can only be learned out of this pasuk if you learn other dinim lifnei zrika from a Kavachayim. We said Amos Yim Adin. So how's it going to work? The Taka says Min Basa B'Sad the Shefer Leisoikim after the Kaman. The Amos Kachim Kachim Chutz L'Klam is Taka learned from a different pasuk, which is when Rabbi Taka said Chamish, we're not going back to that. Chamisha Yisuri Kaman. The Amos is only Chamisha Yisurim, and Makkos would probably only be 2, I think. Yeah, one could be eating an oil lifnei zrika. That's possibly suchalech is spare for one thing, which is lifnei zrika, and chutz l'chayma because the loy soich lam that he could have said tells me that. Okay, so that is the end of this piece of Gemara, and next time we'll start with Gufa.